Rice fraud. Fraud in rice is more common than you might think. Every time I update my food fraud database, there are entries to be added for rice. Every time. It's surprising because we usually think of food fraud as a phenomenon that affects expensive food products like honey, olive oil, or wine. However, in the past 6 months, I've reported on more rice-related food fraud incidents than almost all other food types, even honey. So what's going on with rice? Rice got more expensive in 2022. In June of that year, I noted that the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization's Rice Price Index had risen for the 5th successive month, with experts warning rice is the commodity to watch in terms of global food prices. 1 year later, in 2023, prices for all globally traded food commodities tracked by the FAO were falling, except for rice and sugar. Rice prices increased by 9.8% from July to August that year to reach a 15-year high. At around the same time, India implemented a ban on white rice exports over domestic food security concerns, and the world's second largest rice exporter, Thailand, urged farmers to plant less rice to save water. Rice was changing from an ultra-cheap staple food to a more expensive product. This was when I began to notice more reports of rice fraud in the international media. Here are some of the ways rice fraud shows up. Rice is frequently smuggled between countries when there is a price differential. For example, rice is subsidised by government programs in India, making it cheap compared to neighbouring countries. Rice quality and grades are misrepresented, such as in these recent incidences in South Korea and Brazil. And the South Korea one, in a crackdown on rice fraud, officials found ordinary grade rice had been misrepresented as top grade rice, past season's glutinous rice had been repacked and sold as current season rice, and rice varieties had been misrepresented. 33 organisations were charged with crimes or fined. And in Brazil, 10,500 kilograms of rice in 5 kilogram packages has been seized from a supermarket chain after officials discovered the rice was of an inferior quality and grade to what was claimed on the packs. In other types of rice fraud, GMO rice is labelled organic, and that was reported in the August edition of the EU Agri-Food Fraud Suspicions Report. Rice labelled basmati or jasmine is not of the declared variety or style. Premium rice brands are mimicked by counterfeiters who repack rice, sometimes from illegitimate sources such as illegal imports, into bags labelled with premium brand names, such as in these incidents in Burkina Faso and Panama. The Burkina Faso incident, in that incident, 14 tonnes of rice, which had been illegally repackaged into bags labelled with a different brand name, was seized. The rice was of a lower price brand, and the person repacking the rice was not the authorised brand owner of the new brand. And in Panama, a shipment of rice from China, fraudulently labelled with the name of a premium local brand, was subject of a complaint by the brand owner to authorities. At least 15,000 quintals of rice are being smuggled into that country illegally each year. There are frequent reports of corruption within the government rice program in India, with the government vowing to treat the smuggling of rice as organised crime in December 2024, when 640 tonnes of rice from a ration program was seized as it was allegedly being illegally exported on a foreign ship. This was just one of 13 cases of illegal export of rice from the same port in 6 months, with suspected links to corruption and organised crime, and with the rice possibly destined for Africa. There are also reports of illegal and problematic imports to countries, including Nigeria, where 1,000 bags of smuggled rice were seized from smugglers on boats last week, and Kenya, where thousands of tonnes of aflatoxin-contaminated rice imported from Pakistan somehow avoided proper inspection and was released into the market in 2024. Smuggling, false claims about quality, varieties and organic status, these are the sorts of fraud you might expect in rice. But there have been other frauds that are much more surprising. For example, 3 factories that allegedly produced fraudulent Thai jasmine rice were discovered in China in 2023. The rice was allegedly grown in China, wasn't of a Thai jasmine variety, and was flavoured with undeclared and illegal artificial flavourings, pyrazine and pyrrole. It was misrepresented as Thai jasmine rice to consumers. And then there's the plastic rice controversy, in which consumers across the globe complained that rice grains they purchased were actually made of plastic. Although the plastic rice phenomenon was considered a viral social media myth and failed most fact checks, a well-known British food expert went on the record in 2022 claiming a food company told him they found 10% plastic rice in a consignment they'd received. Perhaps the most unusual rice-related food fraud incident I've heard recently was reported in the European Rapid Alert System for Food and Feed in December. Rice was withdrawn from the market in Germany and the Netherlands after it was found to contain red dye C15585 following a consumer complaint. The dye isn't authorised for use in food or as a food additive and is carcinogenic. Takeaways for food professionals. It's tempting to imagine that lower-cost bulk commodities like rice aren't vulnerable to food fraud, but that just isn't true. Any food that's traded in large quantities provides opportunities for criminals to profit by moving it across borders illegally, making false claims about it, or by diluting it with lower grades of the same material. As we've just heard, rice is affected by all these types of food fraud. Raw rice grains have also been affected by adulteration type food fraud, with artificial flavours used to make fake jasmine rice and carcinogenic dye discovered in rice in a recent food safety incident in Europe. When purchasing rice, be aware of its vulnerabilities and be sure to implement mitigations to reduce your exposure to food fraud. And as always, you'll find links to everything I've just talked about, including the examples I've given in the email and the post.